Welcome to OneLeg Up, where we discuss how you can deliver the very best customer experience and how you can achieve zero marketing waste. I'm Ed Davis, Chief Operations Ninja here at OneLeg, and today I'm joined not only by our mastermind, Vic's son, we're also joined by a special guest, which we'll get to in just a sec. First of all, let's check in with Vic, see how things are going. Vic, how's things?
Superb.
Perfect. As ever, Vic is a word economist. He doesn't mince words, and he always is short to the point. Right, let's get to our special guest then and start the discussion, which is why we're all here. On this episode, we're really happy to have Sean Connors join us. Now, Sean isn't exactly known far and wide in the home improvement industry, though his company is certainly working on that. He does have a long and distinguished career. Sean is the CEO of Contractor Appointments, and that I certainly know more. But Sean, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and Contractor Appointments?
Yeah. We've I appreciate you guys having me on here as well. But yeah, Contractor Appointments, we do lead generation for really up and coming and large home improvement brands, home services brands. So primarily roofing, siding, windows, baths, and solar contractors. We provide lead generation at scale. And kind of our big unique identifier is we work on a revenue share basis with a large percentage of our contractors. So they pay us just on a net sales, and yeah, that's what we do.
Cool. Now, for those of you who are familiar about the personality and culture of OneLeg, you know that we are constantly looking to disrupt the industry's thinking and ways it goes about things. And we think Sean and Contractor Appointments are doing just that. Most of our listeners are going to be familiar with lead aggregators. There are a number of real challenges with the traditional lead aggregator business, which we've documented in a recent blog, and you can find on zeromarketingwaste.com. But as we've researched and as we've come to know, Sean and Contractor Appointments are taking a new look at that model and have developed, I'd like to say, a bit of a better mousetrap. So do I have that right, Sean? You all are looking at how do we make this a better engagement, a better sort of service versus what a traditional lead aggregator would look like?
Yeah, well, I think in the marketing and lead generation industry is we're absolutely changing a viewpoint really from our client perspective to get them more leads to a customer perspective and how to be able to really reach a customer where they're at in the marketing funnel, because that's ultimately going to drive a better consumer experience, which does relate to the contractor and their experience with that homeowner as well. So it's a full-on customer journey. It's not just more names and numbers to throw in a dialer.
So, Sean, I'm curious, what are some of the inherent challenges with, the traditional lead aggregators?
Well, I think the traditional lead generation model, like for the larger lead generators in the space, we work with all of them. We know them all. I know the execs at just about every company out there. Is the traditional lead model is that it's high level marketing. So they'll use a lot of affiliate marketing, just driving traffic at a basic landing page. So name, address, phone number, project they're interested, and then it's going to disseminate that information out to 3 to 4 contractors. There's benefits to that,
or more because
it gets sent out, or they fill out multiple forms in that. I don't think any aggregator really wants to send that information out too much. There's a lot of middlemen in between that do a very poor job of managing data. And that's really the biggest thing we see, is that the aggregating industry as a whole and lead generation industry is trying to provide a service that is a lower cost lead than if you acquired it yourself, and creating consistency. What's been broken in that is that the lead generator doesn't know what's actually happening at the company, and the company's not sharing that information with the lead generator. So it's either leads are bad, fix it, or it's I need more leads because it's working. The lead generator never knows what's working or what's not. They just keep trying to give as many leads and force them down the throat. And that's inherently what we see is kind of broken within lead generation is there's this two different systems that don't talk to each other, and that's what we're trying to really solve with a revenue share model in that process.
Yeah, I have a real issue with with the way that lead generation has really um I would say it's just started to become this mechanical, effort, right? In terms of companies expecting lead costs to continue to go down and quantity to go up with the quality to go up. And in most cases, they don't even know what it takes to get the quantity up or the quality up. They don't have a user journey. They don't
Yeah.
have a set customer experience that's personalized, but they do expect more leads and better quality leads, and then
Yep.
you look at their website, and then it's been 5 years since they ever revamped that or did anything at all to create any type of personalization or for the consumption of relevant content. So, I think my follow-up question to you is that, you're trying to do the shared model, but what has how has that been absorbed by maybe your current clients and prospective ones?
Yeah, well, I think it's understanding your source. So purchasing leads from any third party unbranded source, and that's what we are at this point, is an unbranded source. We're not doing marketing on their behalf. We're not an agency working for them exclusively. They're filling out a contact form and sometimes getting an appointment from us, sometimes getting a raw lead that their system is able to take. I think it's putting the marketing into context, is that's one bucket of customers that are coming into your business. And then you're going to have other buckets. You should have a solid web presence. You should have content and marketing strategy, that you have boots on the ground and you're at every home show and you're getting your name known within the industry. Lead generation is never, in my experience, we've made this mistake. We've signed up the wrong contractor because they think that lead generation and purchasing leads is going to solve their problems. But the companies we find the most success with is that we are one portion of their business, and they've got a strong brand within the industry. The stronger the brand, the better they're going to do with that lead overall. And that's because that is so crucial to this whole to really building credibility. When we did a study over 1,000 homeowners earlier this fall, and we found that the two main things that every homeowner wanted, was they didn't want to know the price immediately, and they wanted to feel confident in who they chose. And that brand is still, that's not lead generation. That's not acquiring a lead. That's built beyond the lead acquisition. It's still only, you're getting a name and a number of someone who happens to be an interest in home services, not necessarily someone who is ready to go with, especially even with your company specifically. It is getting someone at the interest level to raise their hand. And to your point about volume, um, uh, lead cost and volume, there's only so many people buying your product in your market at any given point. So getting more leads or more volume is going to take, you're casting a wider net, and you might get varying lower level of interest of that customer. So that's kind of a battle that we always face as lead generation, is that it's, you're getting people at different stages of the buying process, and then the contractor has to be able to consume that data and that lead information and be able to take it from wherever that homeowner is at in their buying window.
But within that, in your experience, how receptive are these companies to that argument, right? Because certainly OneLeg runs up against that, and in fact, not to give too much away, but part of what you were talking about there is for further fodder on a session that Sean and his team are going to run, where they're bringing Vic and I on, and it's an extension of the one call closed conversation, right? Which is, a lot of times I think these companies find themselves, and their only answer, their only recourse is to say, I need more volume, I need more leads. But I think the three of us happily are aligned to, when we do hear that, the immediate response is, well, do you? Or do you just need to convert better? Do you need a higher quality? Do you need to do some of the things on the front end to better brand, to better create a relationship? And I think that that's sort of where you all complement that mindset really well. Do I interpret that correctly?
Yeah, well, I think I just did a webinar the other day with Active Prospect, and I think there's, in lead generation, there's this common misnomer that it's just about driving lead quantity, and it really isn't. That at the end of the day, the leads you get in, you have to be able to get quality leads in, and you need to be able to really have a full funnel of marketing to be able to convert the leads that you do have. So from your website to every area of your marketing, you need to be able to have a value proposition and express a very, very clear value to the current leads that you have in your funnel, so that you convert more of them. So I think that's, I think from our conversations, it's not about just keep them coming in the top of the funnel. It's making sure that you're actually using every customer and meeting every customer where they're at in the process in the funnel to be able to really, help them and guide them down wherever they're at in the customer journey. That's one thing I talk to marketing managers, and that's something that I think is only becoming, I think you guys are in the very forefront of that within this industry, of really looking at it from a full-fledged customer journey, and that it's not a straightforward, lead, set, demo, issue, demo, and further, and then everything just fall off in between. It's, what about all the ones that didn't make it through
Sure.
and set an appointment? Where
Sure.
are they at in their interest and making the most of it?
And
So interestingly,
it's a vicious cycle, I think, that where you look at this and people who a lot of companies, they want the quantity, and they say, oh yeah, we can convert, but we just need them to get to our call center. And then you look at, okay, well, you've got such a high bounce rate on your site, and then the ones that do, you have to have a live agent and rely on that agent to convince, persuade, coerce, whatever, this particular person. And then you get to the home, and the salesperson now, having this one call close, not knowing, okay, well, this was an organic lead versus a paid one versus something that was from a sweepstakes, and their only goal and their only mandate is to close, on that first visit. And so out the door, like, the personalization goes out the door. You know nothing about the client. And I think one of the things that I'd like to discuss as well, and maybe ask you both, is when you look at how these leads are being populated and then converted, you know what, you said, well, you can't just go grab the leads and accept the leads. There's an additional cost. You've got to go and brand, you've got to go and provide content, right? It's not like, oh, here's my website, you're here for roofing or windows or whatever, go ahead and schedule the appointment. Like, what's the content in there that actually helps the person say, yeah, you're the right company, and I'm in the right place? And many times the
Yeah.
ideal journey for most companies in lead gen, including some of the larger companies, right? Angie modernizes. They ask you a bunch of questions. What are you here for? Give me your name and number. Landing page, no information about the company, no content to consume, no follow up, no questions relating to, well, what kind of contractor are you looking for? It kind of escapes people all the
Yeah.
time.
Well, the interesting thing that we did, so as we've kind of gone through some rebranding exercises with a brand consultant here recently, just internally, is that when we did
not us, by
studies
the
on,
way.
yeah, we found that that homeowners are, it really doesn't matter what landing page they fill out. Their goal was to get 3 estimates. That is their number one goal. Most homeowners are unaware. They go online looking for a service provider when they don't have a direct referral, which is still a good 40% of homeowners don't have a referral from a homeowner. Most home service providers are still hired by referral.
Mhm.
And that is the number one source. That's statistical out there right now. So 40% of people just don't know a roofer or don't know a window company. So they go online. And there's Home Advisor, there's these different lead generators that are out there that have some branding, some credibility there. But homeowners as a whole, there is not very good branding as a home service providers. There's very few home service providers that have done a very good job and invested money into branding in their local market. I can name some out east and northeast that we work with now that have been in business, for 50, 60, 70 plus years, that have like they've accomplished 100,000 projects in the area and have a better local presence than I'd say majority of the other contractors in the country. So it's not everybody, but in most states, there is no branding. There is none of that there of like the first thing I think about when I look for a roofer is X or Windows is X. And a good portion of that is just because the nature of these purchases are so, you don't buy a roof, very often. So it's hard to spend money on branding for homeowners that are only in this buying window for a brief portion of their time too. So that's the unique thing about this whole industry is that, this unbranded approach, that's why it works, is because these contractors and these homeowners have no idea where to start. That's the first thing that they're looking for. They know they need 3 estimates. They don't know who to get them from. And they don't know who to trust at that point either.
Sure, and I'd be interested in sense checking this with you, Sean. We both in our communications with our clients and certainly within internal dialogue within OneLeg, and it's really more my personal theory, and I'm just trying to explore it a little bit. But I feel like I recognize what it is that you're saying there, but I also feel like there's a reckoning coming. Right? And so I think in terms of what you're talking, the unbranded contractor who's done all these jobs and they have a personal reputation and so on and so forth. You just said it yourself. They're 20 years in the community, they're 30 years in the community, they're 40 years in the community. And it's them, right? People know them. The challenge I think that is coming is the older generation, the baby boomers, certainly the Gen Xers, which I'm in. I think we're sort of okay with that a little bit, right? But the me millennials, right, who are going to be the homeowners of the future, and I'll use them as an example, they ain't digging on that. They absolutely want a branded experience. They want to feel like they are special. They want to feel like they are absolutely the only person that you're talking to. And you mentioned it as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know that they're going to be content with, 3 estimates and whatnot. I think what they're going to go after is, oh, I recognize that company because they show up in my feed more than anybody else. Therefore, that must be who I work with. Do you see that coming? That's just sort of a working theory that we have. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it kind of spills into some of the stuff that we've explored with some contractors here too. Is this whole art of of simplicity of there's so many in the home services space that you can now go online and hire a maid and a maid service 100% online without ever talking to a human being. You know what price it's going to be. There's price transparency. And I can know that they're going to come here and schedule that date and time. I can look at the reviews, all of that from the comfort of my own home. You think about Carvana and all these new buy a car online, which sounds crazy. That's a big ticket item, but millennials are eating that concepts up. I really see that coming to home services. And to your point, I think the branding is necessary, but it's going to be a little different in home services because it's so disseminated right now.
Sure.
There isn't anybody taking on the full-fledged home service piece of roofing, windows, gutters, HVAC, all those lifetime value of home projects and putting them under one roof. I really see that as the next stage. And we've seen like Angie start to do some of that stuff as well. But I see that as, creating brand within home services requires companies to be able to really look at it from lifetime value of a customer and and it's going to take a unique uh, process to be able to take a customer and help them create them on a full journey. But
Yep.
right now, most companies don't have a unique identifier that is actually calling it is any different on the back end of their delivery of here's your price, all that kind of stuff. We work with a couple, just to call them out here, we work with One Day Roofing, who is national at 26 states they cover and are doing their sales all over the phone. We work with another company called Roofle, who does online estimates. So, we'll do a Zoom estimate in multiple states as well. So these are very, very early adopters, and also gaining that market share. But I do see the industry going that way, where it's, we can get a measurement from a satellite. I can get a
Yep.
measurement from pictures around your house, on your windows, on your siding, and I can do it all virtually for you. And we've got a webinar coming up with One Click Contractor that's what their platform's built around. I see that going that direction, but until a company is able to do that and do that at scale, it's really hard to brand that whole consumer journey, consumer process because right now the traditional way of selling is just in the home.
Well,
Yep.
Sean, in the way that I would, chime in on that is, and here's where I think being a practitioner, like as a practitioner, being in a company as an executive, as a manager, growing a company, being involved in marketing, sales, installation, all of that process. And companies, especially the larger ones, they are, they are really the ones they're the source of these issues, right? The one call close and the process of going through leads, sending them, confirming them, and then making sure that each salesperson is sent to 12 demos, and then they want that cycle to continue. That really
Yeah,
is the reason why you're having this vicious cycle, right? You're talking about certain products in the exterior of the house that you can price and quote, but then you've got 70% of the time they don't sell. And this escapes most contractors. They go, well, I'm going to increase my close rate, which is at 30% to 31, and everything's profit and gravy at that point. But you can only choose between one or another. Do I focus on the 1% or do I focus on the 70%? So it's really this paradox where, why don't you provide the quotes, be transparent, like you said, provide content, educate the consumer as to what I mean, Progressive does this thing very, very well where they go, flow, everybody knows flow, and you go and get a quote, but they also give you other people's quotes and they say, we're not, this is what you're going to get. And that type of transparency now with insurances have really educated the consumer, because now the consumer knows, look, I'm just really picking between a gecko or flow and what sounds to
yep,
me that, but everyone's providing that good service. And I think for home
yep,
services, until you have them start thinking about the 70% of don't close, you're going to get lead generation to continue this way. Because keep in mind, it starts from the end. If the end game is I have to feed my salespeople 10 to 12 leads a week, appointments, okay, then everything I do will be about gaining more leads. Like, I don't care the quality. I'm going to send 10 to 12 of these appointments to my sales reps. And the next week, I'm going to have to send them 10 to 12, and there's no follow ups. Right. And so you get all this waste and all this effort. And that's going to continue because, again, like Ed was talking about, the the end game for most companies is I need to go and feed my sales reps, right? If they thought
absolutely.
it's customer experience where, like, you're right, most people don't know. I mean, the life cycle of a sale, once it's happened as well, for roofing, for example, is once every 20, 30 years. For windows, maybe 10 to 15 years, right? For baths, maybe shorter. But if you think about that, there's a lot of people that continue to go and refer, contractors that they trust and know. And you've got a lot that don't sell on the first visit, and sometimes it takes a year, maybe two,
Yep,
right? Because, again, people stay in their homes longer now. That part right there involves building content that people want to consume, educating the consumer, and at the same time providing transparent pricing. Because until that
yep,
happens, I think what's going to happen is you're going to continue to have a demand for a lot of names and numbers simply because the way that a company grows is through their sales. That's how they have always seen it, right? And
Yep.
I think that's going to be the crutch for most companies.
Well, but I think, the interesting thing that I picked up on there, and Vic, you're right, right? I think the way this business has been structured, you have disjointed offerings, right? And we are seeing some level of consolidation, but to yours and Sean's point, we've got a roofer who might sell a homeowner once every 20-25 years. You've got window company or door company every 10-15. You've got, flooring that might be once every 20. But I think where, if you were really smart and you were really thinking about how do I invest in my business so that it's got a longer term, right, a longer term view, even within those types of projects that I described, and we all know this is true, most of our clients will say, yeah, my target market is 35 to 40 years old. They've owned their houses for 10-15 years, blah, 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 blah. Now I want to sell them this because I know that they've been in that house. But how interesting would it be if you were progressive and you said, really what I want to do is target those younger, the mid 20s, the upper 20s, who are upwardly mobile because of their career choices, who are somewhat hands on but not really, but they've bought this house that they want to fix up. And to Sean's point, if you were able to offer a plethora of services, and we do have a couple of clients like that. Sean's calling out some of his clients. I'll call out some of ours. Paramount, Everest. Those guys at Everest, they're great. And I think what they're trying to do is, how can I capture you, and how can I actually build a truly long term, sustainable relationship where this year you might need a new roof. We could do that. I might not hear from you for 3 years, but you're going to hear from me periodically. I'm going to send you a note. How are things going? Hey, I might stop by. I was in the neighborhood because we're doing, and oh, by the way, now you need a back deck, right? So I think those are going to be the really interesting companies moving forward and how they approach things. And I think those are some that are going to take precedence over sort of, we specialize in plumbing, we specialize in roofing, we specialize in that. I'm a big proponent of specialization, but I think generalization is, the term general contractor, I think, is going to come back into
And
to have a new meaning.
And Ed and Sean, part of this as well is statistical evidence. Empirically, when you go through like the census and the contractor state license boards, depending on states, they publish the amount of demand. And in California, for example, in 2017, 2018, there were approximately 27, 28,000. I forget the exact number of projects each year, for the varying bathrooms. And there's not enough contractors and installers in the state of California to complete those jobs. And that's year after year. And it's the same thing this year. People are continuing to try to sell and they can't even install, right? So you got to think about that. That's why I have a little bit of a challenge with this, in the sense that when I sense that, okay, well, it's a 1 to 30-year project at a time. There's in Depending on which state you are, just look at the empirical evidence. And if your company has grown in that state year after year, and you're not closing at 50%, the reality is there is so much demand, and we take the demand curve as a contractor, that the reality is, if you played by the numbers, right, it makes sense for you to go and stop trying to generate more leads and converting better, because the reality is, the cycle of the sale is long, and the reality is, there's going to be more demand than you can supply. So it makes sense to invest in, again, the content, the branding, because long term that catches up to your conversion. And then at that point, then you can take the demand curve, which is it's always more, or at least I would say majority of the time, depending on the state you're in. But I think especially if you're in a big state, you've got a lot of this. I mean, maybe not if you're in like New Mexico. We've had a client over there that was a problem, so they had to branch out to other states. But if you're in California, Texas, New York, Massachusetts, like these places, large states, I mean, the demand is so much more than what you can supply, and that's a reality of things. Which is why if you see Home Depot, I mean, the growth of Home Depot and Lowe's over the last 5 years has been exponential. Their stock prices have just skyrocketed in half a decade, simply because people continue to build homes and there's more people who stay in their homes. And again, I think that just needs to be brought into a conversation like this, especially when people start to think about, well, I got to think about this year and I got to think about the leads. Think about the fact that there is so much more demand that you can supply, and then start thinking about what it means for you long term in the next 3 to 4 years if you invested in your brand, in the content, all of those
Yeah.
things.
Well, I think the big thing about content marketing and all that stuff, even from a branding perspective that we've went through as a lead generator is that we found that it's like we need to actually do less of our own value in building on our side of things, and more value building and making our contractor more valuable to the homeowner, because they're at the end of the day the ones that are going to actually be selling the deal and meeting with the customer and all of that. Is to your point, Vic, I feel like the content marketing is, there's only a certain number of people in a market, which there is a lot, who need to replace their roof or are in the market for new windows, and you need to stay in front of people who are continually raising their hand. But you also need to have like complete um, a complete marketing strategy there, that of to build the value and to build the confidence, because at the end of the day, just like there's so many homeowners that are looking for a project to be done in the market, you still need to differentiate yourself from all the other companies who are also vying for that same homeowner's business. It is competitive as an industry, and I think on every marketing manager's mind is like, I need to be in front of the right customer at the right time,
Correct.
and how do I get in front of that person in market for what I do. Lead generation, can obviously fill a portion of that bucket, but the long term, a buying cycle of a homeowner, you have to hit them from multiple different ways and be able to touch them, in multiple different ways. When a homeowner buys a house, when they, like, what are those different key points, which there's statistical evidence of home improvements are more often to be done within the first 2 years of owning a home than they are at any other point in that home's that customer's, that homeowner's journey. Is that's those are different interesting pieces to go and understand who you should market to, and when, and what content you should need to create in your market to be a market leader.
And the interesting part that you touched there is that the marketing manager thinking about that, and a lot of the times, a lot of these companies, they're starting to feel that crunch now, including last year. People are leaving jobs, resigning. Salespeople, a lot, like I would say, a good majority of home improvement companies, their salespeople are commission only. Now you couple that with the fact that you've got supply chain issues. Their commissions are not, the back end commissions aren't coming in because they can't install. In the next 2 years, it's going to be tougher and tougher for you to grow your sales team. And let's face it, I've had this debate with, with the Grosso guys from, and they train sales, right? And there's a big, cottage industry of sales training, which I understand that's necessary, but that's inherently so much more difficult, especially when you're gonna get people now who are gonna demand a salary and a better living conditions, or lifestyles, right? And in sales, when you're trying to go and grow a sales team where everybody's on straight commission, you don't pay gas mileage, you're trying to run them from 9 a.m. in the morning all the way to 7 p.m. at night, Monday through Sunday, right? Only a small minority of those people are going to succeed and even get to the 30-40% close rate. A lot of them are going to be at the bottom rung of that lower bound number for close rates. So if you think about it, the smartest companies now, which Ed was talking about, this reckoning, is they're going to start looking at this and they're going to say, I can't, I'm going to get ahead of this, and I'm not going to be able to grow my sales team and continue to expect to train like 100 of them and expect all 100 of them to get better. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put my money on the branding so that I get the best leads, my ideal customers, the customers that do not need to be sold or persuaded or closed. These are people who know my brand, know my product. I've full transparency. I can compare myself to everybody else, and they purchase predominantly based on value and emotion, right? Which has nothing to do with being sold at the home. It has everything to do with them saying, this is the right product. And let's face it, you've said it so yourself, they're not branded. So when companies, and you hear this all the time, oh, we are the best, we're not the cheapest. Everyone says that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But it's labor and material. You're getting the same labor from everybody else, right? For whether it's from GAF or from Home Depot. So it really is going to boil down to the quality of your installer. Homeowners, listen out there. There's no difference if you go to the big company or the guy who has a truck. Look at their installer and look at their labor, right? Be smart. But again, a lot of homeowners, they're not educated to that level. If you were just a smart contractor and you educated the consumer and you said, look, this is what you're going to get, you don't need someone to go to your home and try to convince you for 3.5 hours, right? With closing techniques, with drop pricing and all of this bullshit about, like, let me call my manager for another discount, or this is only available today, only price, because if I come back, it
Yeah.
increases my lead cost nonsense. You don't need that, because people will know, hey, it's 40 squares. Here's the product that I have. Here's the per price per product. Here's our install price, right? Here's our warranty, and here's our installers, and here's what you're gonna go and pay. And if you're financing it, you're covered. Millennials are gonna
Yeah.
are gonna catch
Yep.
on to this even more than the baby
Yep.
boomers, and I think that reckoning's coming. So,
Well,
To your
we're
point,
gonna.
Ben, with
Oop.
with
No, go ahead,
to
Sean.
with the millennials, I think that's what we as a millennial myself, is that we demand that of the market, is transparency, price transparency. That's the value right there. If we know what the labor is going to be, we know businesses need to make a profit. But
Yep.
you look at the companies who are buying houses, they're line iteming their costs of what it's going to cost to purchase a house from you, and their margin that they're going to take is a risk fee. And you're like, okay, I'm still going to do it. Those companies are growing like freaking crazy. And
yeah.
and it's not about not making money. It's about being transparent with that whole process. And there's value in that in of itself.
Well, I think it's transparency and fairness, right? To
Yeah,
your point, I think
absolutely.
everybody accepts the vast majority of people accept that you are well within your rights to make a profit. It's just, is it fair, and do I
Yeah.
believe that it's fair? And I think a really important point that we'll end this on is, do I believe that the value of the relationship that I have with you or that you have with me, is that included in that? Which is, again, something that isn't really being considered, but like I said, I think moving forward it certainly will be. This is a great conversation. Like I said, we're going to be excited to come on to your platform here in a few weeks, and there'll be more information about that. Sean, thanks for coming on. That's it for us today. We hope you've enjoyed our chat and learned a couple things. As always, we here at OneLeg believe poor marketing pollutes the planet, and that business is full of tired, outdated, indistinct, unremarkable, and underperforming marketing that sucks. But what sucks even more is that many companies have forgotten the most important thing of all, the customer. We're on a mission on behalf of our clients' customers to change that. To learn more, go to zeromarketingwaste.com, where you can subscribe to our blog and this very podcast. You can also find us and follow us by looking for the flamingo and the OneLeg handle wherever you socialize online. And please do seek out Contractor Appointments and Sean and his team. They do a great job. That's it. Talk to you. See you next time.